it up for you again. This is our third little attempt, but we are ready to go. This is Matterall and McLeod in the morning, at least on the west coast of the United States. Today we're going to talk about some stuff and hang out with you guys. We're going to look at Plex. We're going to look at an avatar giveaway that we're doing. We'll give more details on that. And we want to talk about the Aether engine test that's coming up that EVE players are encouraged to participate in. And we want to talk about anything you guys want to talk about. So talk to us through chat, jump in channel with us.
Also, a wild Villy has appeared.
Oh, excellent. I wanted to catch up with Villy because a lot of stuff's happened.
Yeah.
Villy, are you in here?
Hello?
I think he is. Oh, there he is, yeah.
Well,
dude.
Hey, man.
Hey, bro.
Has anything happened since that big non-fight fight that happened yesterday?
Not really. We had some fun with Fraternity, but that's pretty standard for, you know, a gentle war.
You
just general poking at each other, sort of light, in a sort of light way.
Back to being enemies. Well, I think it was really interesting. We talked about it on that live broadcast. Was that Sunday night? And you know, we saw basically Snuff kind of get well, I don't know, discouraged to attack, even with their friends' initiative behind them, basically because the North and Legacy Coalition joined forces, at least for that one incident, and it looks like things are returning back to normal, and Fraternity and Test are fighting again, which is probably something that's going to happen in the next few weeks. Have you had any fallout from that whole incident?
Initiative is still kind of mad because there was a lot of miscommunication between the sides. They had kind of skipped our chain of command and had gone down and gotten information a little more directly than perhaps they should have, and thus they got conflicting information, and that was part of their upsettedness. Otherwise, everybody else is like, yeah, you told us, you know, it is what it is.
Oh, so it never got back to them that what your intentions were, because that might have actually changed their minds. They drove a long way for that.
Well, they drove the long way before they asked anyone, so.
Well, that's on them. Well, anyway, that was good stuff, at least for us EVE watchers. Let me ask you, Villy, you have any idea why Plex is just skyrocketing?
Yeah. There's a variety of reasons why Plex is skyrocketing.
All right, let's have some theories.
Well, we continue to see inflation in the game, so as always, Plex will always naturally continue to go up as inflation goes up. More risk in the game, the more likely that Plex will go up. Income sources continue to be pretty good. I mean, the war has finally started in the south, but that doesn't generally change the overall, you know, outcome that how would I put this? That massive amounts of income are being made on a daily basis compared to historically. I know part of the war prep we did is we spent like 60,000 in Plex, you know, to load up on Cloaky Camp. So that there'd be lots of fun for that. And I think you'll actually see the Plex market like go a little bit of a downturn once we get into the second or third week, maybe, as the otters kind of have to cancel a little bit, maybe. I don't know.
Mm.
I mean,
So,
I know from personally, I'm terrible at making money, but when I know that there's going to be a war coming up, I generally tend to sort of like, you know, double down on making ISK. So it could be that kind of sort of associated bubble of people going, oh crap, there definitely is a war coming, let's make as much ISK as possible before it actually properly kicks off.
Yeah, so one of the big things too is that like a lot of people are past the threshold where the only way they can pay for their subscription is to pay for it via credit card. It's a lot easier to get into the bubble where you can Rourke, Mine, or Super Rats to pay for your Plex versus historically has it it used to be extremely difficult to get into that area where it was, time efficient to just, do whatever you needed to do to Plex your accounts. But now it's much more a situation where it's manageable.
I'm just kind of wondering, is the change to level 4s and level 5s to only be done by Omegas, is that out already, or is that still to come?
I believe that's still to come, but I could be wrong. It's not one of those things that affects me.
Well, I don't know if it's more money coming in or if it's efficiency. It looks to me like the behavior is people are sticking money into Plex. And I think, as Villy said, you're doing that to buy time so that you can have, your Cloaky bombers get paid for, that sort of thing? Did I misunderstand?
Actually, do you think it might also be a little bit of people running on Plex, with people thinking, oh, Plex prices are going to go higher because people are going to, there's going to be a demand for Plex because suddenly the people in HiSec running level 4s are going to need to Plex their accounts in order to run level 4s. So there's that kind of mindset of oh, there's going to be more demand for Plex for a lot of people who run level 4s in big mission hubs. So if I buy Plex now, the prices are probably going to go up, and I'll be able to sell Plex and make money. Could there?
Yeah, that's a possibility for sure.
Well, I don't see. The thing is, I don't know if it's in new money or more money or anything like that. I think it's a shift in priorities, because if you look at all the battleships, let's just go look at T1 battleships, and it might be thinking about this wrong, but they're all going down. All T1 ships are trending down.
Well, that's just because there's a lot of ore in the market.
I'm just going through, I'm dialing through all the battleships, and every one of them is down. And you're right, it has been a long downturn. Let's look at Dominic's, for instance. Yeah, that's been going down since October. Okay, I was looking to see if it's something specifically people were detouring money from ships, and all the percentage of what money they were investing was just going into Plex. But it's that spike is really stark because it's been going up pretty much since the beginning of the year. Right about there. Well, even before the beginning of the year. But it had one downturn where a lot of people bought. But let's just go beginning of the year, which is right about here. Closer. And what's happened in the last few days, it's gone from about 3.8 million per Plex to over 4. So something spiked.
I think for the large part, it's a bunch of effects basically hammering it at the same time. I think there might also be because there hasn't been a Plex sale for a while. Or at least as far as I know, there hasn't been a Plex sale for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I could be completely wrong on that, but I haven't heard of a Plex sale, and I haven't heard of these big kind of sales that happen randomly, on sort of specific country version, specific national versions of Amazon having a ridiculous Plex sale like I've seen every so often.
Yeah, there's no sale. I just checked, but I saw something in our Discord, but that's just the usual bulk rates, but no sale.
Yeah, so that won't be driving prices down.
Well, I think it's a really good time to use real money to pay for virtual items, RMT basically. And then there's good RMT and there's bad RMT. If CCP is doing it, it's going into the game. If somebody else is doing it, it's going into their pocket. But if you if I look at some statistics here that I managed to grab, in January it cost $11.20, that's USD, per billion. So that's how much it cost you to get a billion. But today that price is $9.28 per billion. So I don't know, what is that, like nearly $3 less to buy a billion?
But that depends entirely on how how worthwhile a billion is nowadays compared to then, like and that's very dependent on inflation as well.
Right. I mean, at some point you just saw nerfs to Rorquals, and you saw nerfs to carriers to some degree, and you also saw nerfs to capitals that are all coming in April. They're not here yet. And if those nerfs do what they are intended to do or get adjusted, you may see money being harder to make, but also money being harder to replace. And possibly assets being more vulnerable to being destroyed rather than constantly saved by a wall of faxes. And the recent changes, like I said, those aren't here. They're going to come in April, but if you're thinking of using real money to buy Plex that you can convert to ISK in-game currency, it seems like it's a pretty good time to do it right now, especially with this spike. Like, who knows why this feverish spike is so high, but let's take a look at that. That's just a massive jump. I think it's more stark when you look at it here. A massive jump.
Yeah, it's been trending up for a long while.
Yeah, but it stalled at around 3.6 million for a little while. And then it's definitely, yeah, as Elo Knight says, he's saying some funny stuff in chat. You need a Sherpa to climb that Plex peak. It's happening now.
Yeah.
And you do. You need someone to get you up and over that. It's pretty expensive. That really puts Plex, I mean, 30 days of game time at 2 billion. Get rid of my name there.
I mean, you have to wonder whether there's a ceiling on that, like whether CCP is going to enact some kind of ceiling on that, because, as Plex prices increase, it also means that people, playing the game with, less disposable income available to them, it becomes more and more or less possible for them to actually be a mega and still have funds to be able to basically participate in certain in-game activities.
So yeah, answering some questions here, it does look like the EVE learning curve lethal. That's a good observation there. Yeah, so iScheme disagrees that there's inflation in EVE. And I've heard debates about inflation, how it exists or doesn't exist. Basically, things are the same price they've been for years. I don't really know this inflationary mechanics well enough to know what it actually looks like.
I mean, anything that's NPC buy orders, yeah, they're going to be the same price as they were years ago because they're not affected by inflation. But sometimes we talk about inflation as if, like, inflation's only really a thing in EVE. It's a thing in real life. It's just, more things get mined, people make money, inflation happens everywhere, including in real life. Like, people try to stabilize it, or people try to basically curtail it so it's slow, and that's the preferred thing. But, like, inflation is going to happen. It's just you don't want it to be spiraling out of control. That's when it's bad.
All right, I'm looking at like residual stuff because we call Plex an RMT commodity, which is real money connected. And if you look at injectors, that's connected to Plex through extractors. And that relationship is that you buy Plex, and that allows you to buy extractors, and those are always pegged to Plex. So Plex goes up, extractors goes up. Plex goes down, extractors go down. That's a hard link. What's not a hard link?
I would like.
Let me finish this one part. What's not a hard link is the injector, because that carries a second commodity on it, which is the value of skills. Skill points. What's the value of skill points? So that is not pegged directly to Plex. It's just supposed to kind of mimic it. And you can see that is not suffering any kind of jump. I don't think that's a lag or anything like that. I think that maybe there's... Well, it runs on its own thing, because skill points become less valuable or more valuable depending on the demand. So that's got a different pressure on it. Oh, you were going to say?
I know, I was just going to respond to Hamdir in chat. Like, you know, it may seem like it's a bit kind of like a bit tight in terms of making money in the game in order to afford plexing and stuff, but it is possible, and you don't have to be in, like, you know, the major blocks to be able to do it. Like, you know, plenty of people do it very easily. You just have to wise up to, you know, the better money making ways in the game you know, these days. And one of the best ways, in actual fact, is running Triglavian sites, you know, running the Abyssal sites. That's actually becoming extremely lucrative, and that's something that can be done fairly casually. You know, it only takes 20 minutes to do an Abyssal site. It's never going to take more than 20 minutes, because if it takes more than 20 minutes, you die. Because they have a specific timer that closes stuff. But you know, and they're turning out to be possibly the best way of making money, you know, in game at the moment. So, you know, look to changing up your ideas of how to make money, because there are far more interesting and diverse ways of making money in the game than just ratting in a super.
Well, Abyssal stuff's supposed to be fun and lucrative, right?
And
that's what I've heard. But I think, first of all, you should do Abyssal Space anyway, because it pays well for whatever you do, apparently. But then there's ways to do them solo, to do multiple sites, or sites that are meant for multiple people. You can do them solo, and it gives you all the winnings for all the people that are supposed to do those, and so you can double or triple what you're supposed to be making. That seems like a good way to make ISK these days. You just have to be alert, and you have to actually play the game while you do it. It's not an AFK kind of a thing. And they've actually nerfed that a little bit, because they went after the Gilas and took down the defenses of the drones a bit, their hit points, and that makes them a little more vulnerable. And it appears that they make them vulnerable enough that you actually have to watch them to retract them or heal them or repair them. So you have to basically actively monitor your stuff. You can't just AFK it, where that might have been a little bit easier to do earlier. That's why everybody was saying you should just use Gilas in that site, because your drones are not vulnerable to being destroyed, and that is a whole different advantage to having drones that are above being destroyed. Well, the other things, let's see. Another thing that usually goes hand in hand with training, especially when you take into account skill farming, is the multiple pilot training certificate. And this allows you to train a character on an account that's already paid for. You have to pay for it, either through Plex or real money. But once you do that, you can train a second character or a third character using one of these certificates per character. And that also is not shot up like Plex. But it does follow more or less the same patterns. You can see it's really increased. But look here, I always thought this was funny. Last year, we had some major dips in value for this commodity. And the reason was there were a lot of sales last year. And those sales would always throw in a few extra things, like extractors or these multiple pilot training certificates, and so people who really were buying the package for the Plex would sell off this thing that they didn't really want, this multiple training thing, and so then the price would drop because a lot of people were selling those. Now, every one of these represents a sale that was happening. So,
actually, talking about multiple character training certificates, like I do recall that there is a 2-for-1 going for at the moment on M's multiple character training certificates right now. Like you can train two additional characters for the price of one or something like that.
There is
right now, but I don't think it's affecting the market in anywhere near as much as CCP hopes it would.
Is that in the actual store right now?
I think.
Let me pull open that store.
I'm not sure, but I recall something about that like literally yesterday.
A nice corporate balance you got there, Manero.
Oops.
Sell some keep stars or something?
Oops. Somebody saw my socks. Gotta pull my pant leg down. Let's see.
And yet I can't get him to repay me for a lost lost stiletto. God damn it.
Yeah. Gotta teach you some hard lessons.
Tough love.
Yeah, I see there's always the sale, but the sale's always here. Extract.
I think it might be a EVE Online account management page one, if you're paying for it with credit card or something.
Yeah, let's have a look.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't have any keep stars, but I was lucky enough to buy some.
If you do, we're actually interested in picking up another one.
Oh, really? Yeah.
There has literally never been a time I can think of when Test has not been interested in buying another keep star.
You guys are building. How many do you have now? Can you say? Ballpark?
25 or something. Goons have like 40, so it's not like. But ours are all like road highway stuff. Like we're just trying to create the I-95 down south, and goons are just like sitting in them and like lounging around and look at all our keep stars. We're so fancy, kind of thing.
So you guys are actually building a railway. That's awesome.
But they're trying to realize the Greens are trying to realize the dream of a keep star in every hangar.
McLeod, you there?
Hey, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey. So, I just saw what you put in the stream chat about the SP farm market. Looking at some basic numbers right now, it's minus 160 million a month. Like,
so
I mean,
it's basically drawing to a close, essentially. But
it will keep going because you can still use it to cover most of the cost of an account you don't need to train stuff on. If that makes sense.
Okay. So if it gets to minus the cost of 60 days of or 30 days of skill training, then it's basically dead.
Yeah. But it should self-regulate before that. Until then, people will keep using it like I and many others still do, where you have characters that you've trained all you want to on them, so you just farm them, sell it, cover the cost of the month's subscription, and then you're left 160 mil short to pay for the rest. Which is pretty easy to do.
Okay. Because like in chat, I scheme kind of like was saying a bunch of stuff like, and I'm not exactly, that clued up on it. So I was like, I wanted to. I know that you knew a lot about it because you like either run it or used to run some.
I used to, but since they became unprofitable, I don't do it that much anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of people with massive SP farms that have stopped doing it over the years now, just because of how the profitability has gone up and down.
Yeah.
But from what you say, it seems like it's still somewhat profitable, or at least not profitable, but it has a utility for people who are running it at the moment.
Yes.
So they are big, they are big Plex sinks, right?
Yes. Depending on how you do it, I think if I remember correctly, you can put something like 3,000 Plex in a month on them, which is just bonkers.
Yeah.
Are you talking
That would
about
be,
farms?
Yeah.
Well, that's funny. Last summer there were a lot of people getting out of it because they weren't making any money, and the sales were causing a lot of waves, and so sometimes they would have stuff to harvest that would come out at the wrong time, and it wouldn't be worth their while, and then sometimes it would, and it wasn't until this last Christmas that it kind of stabilized. But a lot of people were out of it by then.
Yeah, I've always argued that the sales were what was keeping it going for so long, because it kept the costs down, and you constantly got a sale right as the costs were going up again, and then it dropped it to like multiple pilot training certificates dropped to like 800 mil at one point, so everyone just stockpiled them.
Yeah, but even with those sales, if you look at last summer from August, let's say, it started downturning in July, right? So skill injectors started going down in value. So if you had already built them up in April, May, June, you were selling them at a loss unless you held on to them. And if you held on to them during summer from August through actually November, you were selling them at rock bottom prices, which is about 700 million each. And that was no good. And that's the time when a lot of people left. Even before that, when the market just started going down. And then in December, it skyrocketed up because people were, the sales all stopped, right? But also, there was a big push to get a lot of skill points into characters and that was opened up by a special gift that CCP gave people. And that you see a giant spike here in volume. I'll zoom in so you can see that. So you had double the amount selling right there than normal. Looks a lot smaller when it's all together, but it's twice as much as before. And since then, it's actually gone up and up and up, but in a slower rate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Sorry, I was just going to say, iScheme and Peter 2K both touch on good points in chat. People who still have stockpiles worth of Plex because of how large their SP farm is are still going to be burning through that. I honestly can't give an idea of when that will end. They've probably got quite a big stockpile. Mm-hmm. And yes, SP farms with free characters was the go-to, because an MCT at the lowest point was 800 mil, while the Plex sub was 1.4 bill, and something like that.
Yeah, so you use an MCT and basically like extract the SP from that tune rather than like a main tune.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll keep looking at this. It's a remarkable and impressive jump. Okay, it's a good time to tell you guys that are watching this live and anybody who watches this recorded that we're a few days away now from GDC. GDC is starting, which means at this. Is it actually tomorrow? We have the Aether engine that's going to be tested, and EVE players are invited to test it. It's not EVE Online. It doesn't count, but it's a technology that EVE might use in order to put the game onto servers that have essentially unlimited resources. And I'm being very vague about that. That means that big fights can grow to the scale that is natural rather than being limited by the technology. If you're not familiar, when thousands of people start fighting each other in EVE Online, and that's, if you think about it, that's a huge number, right? Thousands compared to a few hundreds. The servers choke and it creates a problem. If there's an impromptu fight where it's not really planned, it chokes even sooner than a few thousand people fighting. So they're looking to change technology to something that can accommodate as much as the players want to throw at it. And this is one of the technologies that they're looking at. From Hadeon, I think, is the company. Yep. And in a few days, they're going to test this server, and they want EVE players to do it. So they need to get about 10,000 EVE players. So sign up for that. That information came out. Let's have a look. I think it was yesterday. They on their Discord. If you're not a member of their Discord, you can find that at Talking in Stations 2, and they gave an announcement here. They gave a timeline, so check that out under announcements under Aether Engine, AETHER.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic at best for the amount of people that are going to show up for that. Unfortunately.
Well, they said that they have had, like, I mean, you know, there's a big difference between the amount of people who like sign up for something and the amount of people who actually turn up on the day. But they have said that they've gone past, like, I think Falcon put a thing saying that like they've like a few days ago, in actual fact, that they said that they'd reached over 12,000 people subscribed to it. So
is that when everyone still thought it was going to be a weekend, or?
I do not know.
Were people really thinking it was going to be a weekend?
The original announcement was that it was a weekend, is my understanding.
Yeah, it makes more sense.
Sorry, yes. There was one for like that should have been like a week or two ago that was delayed, yeah. Because it's not just EVE players that have been given this opportunity. They've got people from Elite, Star Citizen, and a number of others, basically anyone who's followed them for a while. They've successfully done a 1,000 player test and a 10,000 simulated test. So now it's see how many we get tomorrow.
Okay, so the key deadlines here are tomorrow at 1700 UTC, signups close. So essentially you have 24 hours to sign up. Make sure that you do. And
was the test on Wednesday? Is that my understanding?
It depends on where you are, but
well, it's Wednesday 1700 Eve time, right?
Yeah, 1730, is that right? Is it here? This begins. You're right. Wednesday 1730. So yeah, we're 24 hours away.
Yeah.
Guys, just for 1 hour too.
Yeah, as I said, I'm cautiously optimistic at best. My original understanding was this was a weekend test, and I was like, okay, well, at least they made one good decision, and then
Then they took it away.
Well, it's like organizing, like anybody who's done any level of like alliance leadership, whatever, in EVE knows there's a lot of work and a lot of planning goes into any level of turnout past, you know, whatever your average standing fleet is, be that 50 or 250 people, right? You know, if you want to start getting people into the thousands, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, CCP has a significant amount more resources than the average alliance leader in EVE, theoretically, but like there's still kind of rules of human, you know, psychology, you know, constants of, you know, incentive, etc. Like if you give people know, like, the main reason people are going to show up to this is because it's something cool, it's something different, right? But if all of a sudden it's like, well, it's kind of hard to show up in the middle of the workday for, you know, everybody in the US, or it's like literally at the end of the workday for everybody in the UK, it's like, you know, it's not a good time for Korea or you know, Australia or any of the other time zones. It's like you're literally only drawing from like middle and Eastern European sources, like with this time zone.
Yeah, they've got some bad time on it, but to what I understand, it's because they are doing it live on stage at GDC, which is,
I mean,
an experiment in and of itself.
It's yeah, like I'm not saying that's a bad idea to do, but like, you know, I mean, it's ballsy.
It's gonna look bad if something goes wrong with the servers.
It's ambitious, right? They're taking a chance, and as a company, sometimes that's what you have to do to get your product out there and get your name out there, right? So if Hadean pulls this off and it looks really awesome, then they're going to be in all the technical news, and it's going to look really good for their company. But if this falls apart, then it'll just be the standard, and nobody will talk too much about it, right? Like,
Well,
it's a high risk, moderately low reward.
Well, they're the initial like their talk is the initial talk of the whole GDC conference. Kind of like that's the opening one, right?
I don't believe so because it has already opened as of yesterday.
Oh, okay, my bad then.
Well, their talk might be different than their demonstration, but we just want to make sure that if you're watching the show or if you're watching this video that you can still participate. This is 24 hours from now, the airing of this show. So Wednesday morning, 17:30. That's 5:30 p.m. UTC in England, I guess. That's when this all happens. You have to sign up before 5 p.m. UK time. So sign up. Not on a weekend. Didn't realize that, but I guess they're trying to demonstrate it at this convention, so the convention might end Friday. Who knows? Okay, reading a bunch of comments.
I don't know whether are you going to be able or around to stream it, or do you want me to kind of chuck a stream up for it?
Are you guys going to stream it?
Yeah, we should stream it.
Because I was looking at the FAQ, and they basically said, yeah, if you want to stream it, we'd really like people to stream it. So.
Okay, I thought it was the opposite, that they didn't want that, but okay, that makes sense, right? They're doing it.
No, it says on the FAQ like, can I stream the Eve Aether Wars tech demo to Twitch, YouTube, etc. And they said yes. In fact, we encourage you to stream it. And use the particular hashtag when streaming it so they can join other fans in live streaming the tech demo at GDC.
Yeah, let's stream it for sure. It's around this time, right? It's almost exactly 24 hours. Actually, yeah, it's 25 hours. Yeah. You may have to stream it. I could take some time off work to do it. But I don't know if they have a Mac client. So, is it a web client? I haven't looked.
I don't think it is.
I don't think so.
To download it, so.
Yeah, you have to download like a pretty hefty client.
Anybody who's signed up to it in about like probably an hour or two's time, there will be emails going out with links to where you can download the client for it. So they'll be winging their ways to your email inbox sometime soon.
Yeah, it's a client. It's about 700 megabytes. It takes about 10 minutes to download, according to their instructions. And something tells me they don't have a Mac client, so we'll be relying on you, McLeod, to put the video up.
That's all right.
After all, we're on vacation.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I want to do a tech demo.
Okay, so
I can pipe the footage to you, or I could put it up myself. Like it's up to you. We'll work it out.
Yeah, we'll talk about it tonight. Another thing we have to talk about tonight is this giveaway. Actually, we've done a lot of work on it so far. If you haven't heard, on the last podcast and live show, we decided on a
whim. Metal went mad, basically.
Decided to reward fans for basically sticking with us for the first season. And we gave out a Rorqual, and we gave out blueprint copies for other Rorquals to be built. And we thought that was good, but we thought we could do even better. So we are giving away an Avatar Titan. And here's some information that's new. There's no point in getting an Avatar Titan if you can't fly it. So we're putting in the skill book too, which is a 6 billion ISK attachment bonus. So Avatar and the skill book to fly it. We're not giving you injectors because, come on, I'll end up broke. But we want to.
And just to clarify, this is open to guests, right?
Yes, actually, it is open to guests, which will be really weird if you win, Billy, but it will be fair and square. This is pretty much anybody who's been fans. The only people that can't qualify are the people that work for TIS for obvious reasons, conflict of interest. But guests can have it, yeah, and so can fans. But here's the hard part, and I welcome discussion on this. How do we actually make sure we're rewarding a fan and not just somebody who put in 20 entries that never watches the show? And that's really difficult. So we've kicked around some ideas on how to limit it without being too restrictive that dissuades our guys. So yeah, saying I'm a total fan is right now is a good idea. It's a good idea, right? Because we can say like, okay, total fan.
Essentially, what you have to do is you have to come in, and we'll do a physical on you, and you know, if everything checks out correct, then you know, and
See,
you know, we can tell that you're not like a cyborg or something like that. Like then, you know,
Why don't you just do like a draw over the course of like a month? So, you know, watch the show 3 times and do one of those little random Twitch draws, and if your name just appears 3 out of, you know, 7 times or whatever it is, then it qualifies or something.
yeah. Well, that's a really interesting idea. But then we wouldn't be able to give it until the end of next season. So we should have made arrangements for that this season.
My concern right now is if we're giving away an avatar skill book at the end of season 1, what are we going to be doing at the end of season 4? Like, I don't think you have the authority to give away regions of space.
Keep stars.
Or keep stars. It's like you've
Billy
got the
can.
avatar, now have a place to put it in.
Yeah. No, listen, this is... I don't want to make a show that's kind of... well... ugh.
I'm only joking, dude. You know I'm only joking.
No, I was going to answer a different question, not what you say. I know you're joking.
Okay.
When we talked Billy into giving us like a constellation, we're going to give away a constellation. That'll be funny. We won't say how long you can keep it, but we'll give you, you know, rights to it. So one of the things that we've been thinking about is creating a little bit of a survey, not a survey, but just a survey, using a survey form to answer like what your favorite show was, and then also putting your name in there so we can actually contact you if you win. Some kind of a barrier that is going to dissuade people from coming out of nowhere and just dropping in a bunch of emails, you know. Somebody creating 20 Google accounts and just dropping Google emails, or putting in all their alts accounts and stuff like that.
Could always quiz someone on how you pronounce certain people's names.
I would fail that. So, but that would be ironically funny.
I just remember that advert McLeod did, like...
I'm kind of annoyed, Matterall. I just realized you're in Jita and not Perimeter. Use a real trade hub, man.
It doesn't mean I don't trade out of there. I just sit in here. This is where all my stuff is.
That shows where your loyalties lie. I'm done here.
No, don't go away. Don't go away. I'll prove that I shop there. By the way, the Plex shooting up in price just must be awesome for you.
Confirm Matterall is a shill for the Kaldari corporations.
Okay, so I can't tell if Philly's joking or not because he has dropped from channel.
He has stomped off. Oh. No, he probably had to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, we want to make sure that a fan gets this, and we'll make some kind of a barrier. But here's the thing: I also don't want to make it a pain in the ass to like qualify, and certainly, you certainly don't have to kiss up to the show. You know, you just kind of have to answer a question that shows that like you didn't just hear about this and are showing up. And I don't care if the pool goes from a possible 500 people down to a possible 50 people. That's actually great, because then it's 1 in 50 chance that somebody who's actually a fan will win, and that's much more the goal than just making this a publicity stunt and spreading it on Reddit and the forums and drawing attention to ourselves, that you should come and watch Talking in Stations. That's not what this is about at all. It's not an attempt to get new viewers. It's an attempt to really reward in a spectacular way people who've been with us and have made this all possible. So yeah, so what we'll do is, I think it's going to be released only as a podcast. That's not true. I'll give links inside a Discord to it as well. Or if you visit talkinginstations.com by tomorrow, it'll be up by tomorrow for sure. Then you will have instructions on, or a link to the sign-up form. And the sign-up form, you have to put some kind of a contact name so we can actually figure out how to get in touch with you. And that can be an in-game name. Doesn't have to be an email. There will be a question that says something along the lines of like, what are 2 or 3 of your favorite shows? Maybe a quiz question of some sort. I don't know. Or we can just leave an empty space and you just convince us that you've watched the shows by dropping some knowledge here or there. And that will qualify you into the drawing. So if somebody wants to drop 10, 15 entries, they're going to have to think of 10 or 15 different ways of saying something original. And at least that's a hurdle for them. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get it up by tomorrow. Let's say by tomorrow by Aether Wars, there will be something up on talkinginstations.com. It will be publicized through Discord only and through the podcast RSS stream only. I won't put it on Twitter. I won't put it in forums. It won't go on Reddit or any of that kind of stuff. It's just for people who are in touch with Talking in Stations.
Will it be some kind of like a cryptic clue in the... You have to work it out.
No clues and no... I thought about that too. Like, tell us, this or that about... But people miss shows, and that's totally fine. Or they fast forward parts of shows, and that's totally fine. We still want them to be included. So it's going to be in the middle there. It's going to be something that's kind of hard to do, but it's not impossible to do. And even if you've been listening to us for a little while, you're not left out. That might even be worse than letting people in that haven't been listening. I'd hate to see fans blocked that couldn't enter. So again, that's going to be an Avatar Titan and the skill book that goes with it. So you'll be able to actually use it. And if you want to take all that and sell it, up to you. What's that?
And I can't enter, goddammit.
You can't enter, no. You're barred. I'm barred. Well, and so is anybody else that worked for. Well, we pick no favorites. I think you'll just have to trust us on that. But yeah, sorry, buddy. We'll fix you up somehow.
It's fine, dude. I'm only joking.
All right. The other thing I'm going to do, and this is separate, okay? You don't have to do anything for Talking in Stations to qualify for the avatar. So this is now a separate thing, but I'm going to mention it here. And this might actually be controversial because I'm mentioning it right after a big old giveaway. But we do want to send news out. I want to get to writing again. That was what I was primarily known for. And I want to send out little newsletters to people, either through email, so they don't have to be in client or play EVE Online to get them. And they could just kind of get it as they go about their daily life if they want to just keep in touch with what's going on in EVE. But also inside of EVE Online, there's going to be a CC list that you can apply to that will basically give you a morning paper that tells you like some of the player-made news that's going on out there. And this is an attempt to kind of bring the news to the players rather than ask the players to come to us. Which I think it's kind of time that the news get back into the game. That you receive it on your character so that you don't have to do all this meta stuff to kind of get the benefit of knowledge about some of the stuff that people are thinking about as a whole consensus, as players, like what are some of the player events or news that are happening. Love to put that into the game, so you don't have to like go to a website or even listen to a show or do any of that. And that's really what we want to do.
I need
So
to
we're gonna
ask
set that
something,
up.
though.
Yeah.
About that. Does Minxie know about this?
Why is that?
Well, I mean, considering she was your editor.
She's my personal editor.
Personal editor. Does she know about this?
No, but I'll don't worry. The quality of the writing will be better than it usually is on my first draft. But here's the thing: it's not going to be like every day you're going to get a news report on everything that's happening. Instead, I'm going to do what I've seen a few groups do actually in real life with politics and with culture and with other things, is they really pick one thing to kind of focus on, and they just kind of go into it pretty deep. But enough they start where basic understanding is, and they go in a little deep, and then that's it. And then they might come back to it later. But so I'll be looking for stories all around EVE Online to talk about. And generally, I'll be talking about the big themes, so that when you hear about something happening, you have some idea of what's going on. And that's the goal. So yeah, and at this point, they won't be things that happen every day, because the discipline to do that, sometimes there's just not a lot going on. But I want to try to do it every day, but every other day would be nice. And they could be companions to this program here, where we have a chill stream and we talk about what's going on out there, and then write up a little, 3-4 paragraph thing. The thing is, it's made for people who are in the game. As they get an email, they're not going to sit there and spend a whole lot of time reading it unless they're mining or doing something mindless. But if they're getting into stuff, they may not read it. So it's got to be really bite-sized. And I think the one in the game will be a little bit truncated, and the one that's written for real-life email will be a bit longer with more detail. That's I've already set up the templates and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just how much reading time you have in the game is going to be a lot shorter than how much reading time you have in real life. Okay, all that is something you need to sign up for, because I got to know how to get it to you. So you can either sign up in game, which we'll give instructions on that coming up in a couple weeks, or right now you can sign up for the newsletter at this very moment by going to talkingstations.com and scrolling to the bottom. There'll be a pop-out that comes out and says, do you want to be on this newsletter? Enter your email here. And we've gotten some people that way. This is cool. If you guys, I hadn't thought of this, because we really just kind of pick guests as we need them. And we're lucky enough, and we've done a good enough job that people want to come on our show. But I haven't really opened that up to everybody, because clearly we don't know who's worth listening to and who's not until we talk to them or get to know them, or they're representatives of an official group. So what I do want to do, though, is get new people and a diversity of people. And we'll figure out how to do that. But the first step is Talking in Stations Discord. Join that. Hang around. Talk in public. We notice people that actually drop news. Those guys immediately catch our attention, and we start listening to what they say and then inviting them to talk. And that's how we get to know people who could be prospective guests. So Thalzar, if you're interested in being a guest, if other people are interested in being guests on Talking in Stations for this next season, we would love to have you. We want a diversity of guests, diversity of play styles, diversity of regions. So
I actually kind of wanted to ask something both to you, Metal, and to like maybe people watching.
Mm-hmm.
But I got some some questions, some comments about whether we would do something related to basically small gang warfare, that kind of thing, like small gang and roaming stuff. Whether we'd be interested in doing that, and I'd love to know if interest is out there for that kind of stuff. because I think that there is. I kind of think that you know, the people who run it, the people who do it, aren't generally the people who are, you know, the most well known of people.
Hmm.
But I do genuinely think that there is like some decent interest out there for us to cover that in some way, shape, or form. And if you want to be on the show, you know, talking about small gang and roaming kind of gameplay, then let us know.
A clarification, I said we notice people that drop news, not nudes. So don't drop nude pictures of yourself in Discord. I'll have to ban you, unfortunately. Elo Knight is spreading disinformation in chat.
Always Elo.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much all I wanted to do today. Do you guys have any topics you need to talk about? See what's going on out there? I'll tell you this, because Elo Knight's typing in there. It's going to be very exciting to see what he does with Fraternity on the test border. That is going to be the next 2 weeks of must-watch EVE Online. There's going to be a lot of things happening, and we'll see how that shakes out. But those are the dynamics that are setting up there are like to dream about, because you have Russians who like to engage in fights against Chinese who also like to engage in fights, and Elo who also likes to engage in fights. You know, they're not risk averse at all, and so these groups are on the border, kind of heading at one another. So it's going to be interesting to see how disruptive it gets.
I haven't put the alert onto the actual alert thing, but Respawn just raided us, by the way. I think this may be our first raid. And you'll be confused as to what that means. But basically, what that means is like Respawn is basically kind of just sort of finishing up his stream, and he was like looking around for a decent stream to throw all of his guests, all of his audience to, and he chose us because he's a legend. So thank you, dude.
What's the difference between a raid and auto hosting?
A raid is more directed. Auto
okay.
hosting is just a thing. It's just like it's an automatic thing.
Awesome. Thanks, Respawn. Cool. Well, unfortunately, we're kind of wrapping up. But just to review real quick, just for people who just got here. One is the Plex prices have skyrocketed. We don't know why. We're trying to figure out why. We have some ideas. Let's see if I can get that back up. Especially in the last few days, it just seems to have really popped up almost like a cliff. And the other thing is that tomorrow is the Aether Engine
tech demo.
Tech demo, that's what they call it. Aether Engine tech demo. And EVE Online players are invited, but you must sign up before 1700 UTC on Wednesday. And the competition actually starts at 17:30, half hour later. So don't miss out. We're going to stream it live and participate in it here. That is tomorrow. It's going to be EVE assets, so it's going to look like EVE Online, but the technology under those ships is going to be different. It's going to look different and play different. It's not EVE Online, it doesn't count, but...
Yeah, it's not EVE Online. It may look a little bit like EVE Online, but it's not going to play like EVE Online.
Controls won't be the same.
Yeah, controls won't be the same. It'll probably be more sort of like flying your ship rather than just like clicking where your ship needs to go. But I just put the link in there for the sign up. So if you haven't signed up yet, just click that and go and sign up for it. That'll be happening tomorrow. At around about this, hang on, what time is it? Is it around about this time or a little bit?
It's in an hour. It's right about this time it closes, and it starts in about a half hour tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's you have to download a client, which will the link to that will come in an email that you'll be getting in a couple of hours time. So yeah, check it out. I really, really implore you to come check it out.
Right. And the last thing that we were talking about is the giveaway from Talking in Stations for fans of the show, podcast fans. We're going to release tomorrow a very short podcast that says how to enter and what the requirements are. The prize will be an Avatar Titan and the skill book that goes with it. So you'll be able to actually fly it if you get it. And we'll also give some other prizes too. We haven't determined what they are, but they'll be of runner-up prizes. Yeah, and so we want to make sure that's for fans. So we're going to put a few obstacles in the way of the general public and people repeating entries and stuff like that. So we'll see how that goes. Tomorrow it'll be out right around the same time that 24 hours from now, Aether Wars happens. Cool. So that's what we talked about today. Interesting thing to look at in EVE Online again is the South, where Elo Knight and Origin, his corporation, have moved to Fraternity, and they are fighting on the border with some of the Russians in the area. The Russians are backed up by Vili, ProGod, and Test Alliance, who lead the Legacy Coalition. Going to be some action there. What was really amazing is what we saw Sunday was that Elo and Fraternity were made peace with Test and Vili in order to defend a Keepstar from Snuff and the Initiative. And that was a really big, I think, disappointment for Initiative, but also for Test people who have been told to hate Fraternity, and here they weren't supposed to shoot them yesterday. So it was kind of interesting to see some of the logs from their Alliance chat. I guess that's what it was. Yeah, some of those leaked out. But I don't think it's a big deal, and it shows the power that Vili has over Test to basically say, look, Snuff backstabbed us, and this is our chance to get back at them, and we're gonna basically police our sphere of influence. And this Keepstar, although it doesn't belong to Test, is in their sphere of influence, and so they protected it.
I mean, if anything, this is signal to Snuff that Test remembers, and that they should do well to heed that. Right?
Yeah. I'm going to agree with you. But I was reading, but I'm going to agree with you because I think you're right. All right, man. Thanks, McLeod, for hanging out. And by the way, spectacular job on Sunday. When we gave away a Rorqual, we didn't know how we would do it. So McLeod just on the fly scrambled and figured out how we could do that in a fair way. So.
Ooh, quick note, sorry.
Yeah.
Steve Renukin has just posted the Winter Summit notes.
Oh, nice.
Let's open them up and go over them.
Show's not over. That's your.
It's not over till it's over, boys.
All right. This is good reading for some of us. We'll read it for you and tell you what it says.
Throw it to Dirk. He loves this.
Yeah,
He
we'll get
loves
Dirk on
reading
here.
through it for some reason.
Yeah. All right. How many pages is this one? We'll have to see.
45.
Ah.
Some of it will be
That's about
Steve's cooking recipes and other stuff as well, though, I assume.
Yeah. These are great fun, and they're very important. If I were you, I would get that link. You can find it at TIS Discord, or you can find it somewhere else in EVE Online. You want to read these notes because this is a lot of information about what's going to happen in EVE Online. If you can read between the lines, you can probably get ahead so that you're not just subject to whatever the changes are. You can start to evolve your playstyle. You can start to move your money around. You can start to make plans. All that is based on some of the cryptic clues that are found in between the lines of this document. That is why it is so important. I will actually put in a link now to chat. It goes directly to CSM, so check it out. We'll read about it tonight, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll also stream Aether Wars, and we'll see how that goes.
There's no mention of Hadian in it apparently.
Well, I suspect this might have dropped after it, so there wouldn't have been any. And I don't know if the CSM was let in on what those plans were.
Well, I mean, if they were, then it would have either it was redacted or like they weren't. So like because it doesn't appear in this document. So
yeah, and no problem, Thalzar, for doing the class link. I'll also say, if you guys have any questions about EVE Online, we have a channel for that on our Discord. But there's also a class from EVE Uni that's run by Seamus. I think it's every Tuesday. I'll find the time for that, and it's just terrific. He sits there and he answers every class in detail. He answers every question in detail, and the questions can be really complex questions or really basic questions. And he's terrific at just giving you complete information about how the mechanics work in EVE Online. So if you think you know something but you're not quite sure, it's an embarrassment-free zone to learn. And that is Seamus from EVE Uni.
Ah, yes. So this isn't the best way of like looking through the document like this, but I'm just like literally like searching for singular words, and inflation does appear one time, and it is Aerith who's mentioning that if CCP were to tackle any of the biggest forces due to the ongoing inflation, then they should focus on ratting and adds that even more radical measures wouldn't be bad. He suggests that placing an NPC hick in anomalies to increase the risk of death. CCP Fozzie says that adding more scrambling rats has been done in the past and could be done again in the future. So if you see NPC hicks, it's because of Aerith.
Also, somewhat just above that, there's a comment from CCP Fozzie when they're talking about Plex, which you guys have been talking today, and they're talking about the price of it, and they want to understand the situation. And CCP Fozzie responds that real-life events impact the Plex more than anything CCP does. As in, impacts the price of.
You guys want to do this for another 10 minutes, we'll do it. Keep reading and telling us what's in it.
We're just finding stuff. We're gonna eventually figure, like, eventually realize that, like, we actually have to pick through it, like, long form rather than just looking for phrases. But this is what we're coming up with quickly.
I mean, that was just, I completely stumbled across, and it was like, well, that's somewhat relevant to what's being talked about on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially Aerith saying that there is, and he's known as a big financial guy. He's out of Goonswarm. They have multiple tens of trillions in finance moving around, either through assets or through ISK. So he knows what he's talking about when he's talking about large economic topics. So to listen to him saying there is inflation is interesting.
Just quick, Matterall. What is the current price of Plex?
4 billion. Sorry, 4 million.
Sorry. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
because I'll read this quote from the thing in full length. CCP Goodfella asks if the CSM consider Plex prices rising to be an issue. The CSM thinks it is. Salt Dragon mentions this situation is forcing a creep that players cannot keep up with. Risk Rebuttal then says that 3.5 million ISK per Plex will be the mark where bad things start happening. We've already crossed that mark.
Yeah. Well, and you've seen some complaints, right? People are saying, like, there's calls for CCP to intervene or whatever else. And
yes, and the CSM seemed to be of the same opinion here, saying that it needs to be brought down.
Well, hang on. When was the summit again?
Okay, it was February 18th. That was a month ago.
Okay.
That was almost exactly a month ago. Why should CCP intervene is what Adama is saying in chat. CCP has never actually publicly said they intervene in the private in the EVE market. They've never said they intervene in it, but they do.
They
cool off Plex prices, I think.
Yeah, they haven't, specifically intervened with, ways that only devs can intervene, but they have, like, for example, on the on some of the accounts that they ban for, RMT and that kind of stuff, any of the Plex that they essentially get back from those accounts, they store it on a particular account, and every so often, as far as I know, and I don't know whether it's happened in recent times or not, but I know that their markets analyst who left to be a dean of university, he used to every so often inject like Plex into the market at a certain price to basically cool the market off, and that was from those accounts. That's the most that I have ever heard of CCP in like actually intervening in some way, shape, or form in the market, but that was done in the same way that players do.
To what I understand, the sales have been used as interventions before. That's how they were keeping it in check. Now they've stopped sales for a while. It's not in check anymore, and it's just rising.
Well, that's what they said. Falcon came out and said, as you can see, with the power of our sales, we can bat down prices for Plex. And that was a demonstration of what kinds of ways they had to lower it. I think it's inevitable you'll see a sale coming soon. Crossing the 4 million mark is a big milestone. That means it cost you 2 billion ISK to pay for a month of playtime. And I don't know who that affects most. Does that affect botters? Does that affect players?
It affects people who cannot pay with real world money, who live not in nullsec or wormholes where they can make the 2 billion a month. And as I say, their only way of being able to sustainably subscribe is to Plex their account.
Mm-hmm. Interesting point by Curtis here. Says that they had a sale 10% for Valentine's Day and it didn't change much. And also KR4 says it's not happening naturally. The Plex prices are being manipulated. Very interesting. Mm-hmm. The majority, and he continues to say, the majority of the buy orders have been from Erican and have been alternating over the past few months with Perimeter.
Yeah, just to take what Adama's saying though quick. I get the idea that EVE is free to play and you can drop to alpha, and no, we shouldn't be a charity, but there is the point where it does irreparable damage to the subscriber count playing the game. That's what you have to watch out for.
This is another little interesting tidbit from Helgi 125, who says it hurts groups like Fraternity hard. And that would be very interesting if you have, if you just really play this out with some amount of speculation. I don't know if this is true, but I'm just going to walk down this path for a second. So not true, not factually true. I'm just going to walk down this path. But if prices are being manipulated and Test is benefiting because they've kind of won the dominance of the offshoring markets that rely on Plex to make money. So Test is making a lot of money. And it has the added benefit, high Plex prices have the added benefit of hurting their enemy in the game, making it harder for their guys to kind of log in. That is really interesting, isn't it? The economic warfare in the metasphere being used to hurt opponents in the game. I love the way that sounds. If it could be proven, if it can be written up and substantiated.
To some degree, it's like an economic nuclear war, because it's not just affecting just those two. Like, Plex affects everybody to some degree, shape, or form. Whether it's trying to sell Plex for ISK, or whether it's trying to fuel your accounts using Plex, kind of thing. So in that kind of sense, there's a fair amount of fallout that you would get with a nuclear war. So you can kind of surmise this as an economic nuclear war to some degree.
Well, and again, that is just not factually substantiated in any way. It's just a theoretical thinking about some of the possibilities of how warfare isn't just ships on the field. As you saw just Sunday, it's a lot about diplomacy and bargain making, and it's also about economic warfare and psychological warfare. It's what makes this game really rich and interesting to look at and to talk about. Are we finding anything else inside of CSM Minutes?
I think we need to deep dive it and take more time with it at the moment. But some tidbits
we'll do that.
We found.
We'll read it tonight. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I'll try to be on tomorrow. If not, you can see McLeod on as we watch the Aether engine test that Eve is involved with. If you haven't signed up, you have 24 hours to do it. Right about at exactly this time tomorrow, the big fight begins. It's a huge brawl. They're hoping to get 10,000 people fighting. And it will be during a convention for game developers, so it will be a really big deal if we can get 10,000 people there. Of course, Eve is probably going to have the majority of players on there. It won't count towards Eve, but it definitely counts towards research for a better EVE Online server quality of life. Well, thanks everybody. I think we should wrap it up here at the hour and a half mark. Or is it an hour mark? Yeah, hour 15. Because we had about 10 minutes of having to get the title right.
10 minutes of Twitch being a little awkward.
Yeah. Well, it's weird, We're using all this web-based technology to put on this show, and it's I hate to say we make it look easier. I should just say it's harder than it looks, even though we're not a polished program. It is difficult to put all these things in, but technology's kind of come to a place where you could do this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. You guys have anything you want to point us to look at in the next few days?
I mean, down south, like I'm trying to figure out ways on how to sort of like be alerted to things that happen down south, so I can say get a roving reporting stiletto in there. But I've yet to figure out like how to do that. I thought an RSS feed would work, but it doesn't for some reason. If anybody has any methods for that kind of thing that they would like to share, then please PM me in some way, shape, or form, or just say some stuff in TIS Discord about it. But yeah.
Well, I like this. CCP Ghost, I guess, is still there. There were some questions if he was still there. But it's interesting. Eve culture and in-game identity. I would love to have listened to that. That's probably going to be a really interesting piece. All right, we're going to go and read this stuff, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. I want to thank you guys for showing up. Really appreciate it. Big things happening tomorrow. Last time we'll tell you, register and play the Aether Wars that are going to happen tomorrow. And also, we're going to give away an avatar. We're going to tell you how to do that on the podcast RSS and also in Discord.
And I'd also like to say thank you very much again to Respawn to Win for rating us with a bunch of dudes. Thank you.
Yeah, that was cool. It was interesting. This is all a big experiment. It's just getting more and more interesting as we go. Thanks, McLeod. Thanks, Bard Ghost.
That's fine.
Cheers, Billy, even though you're not here, but thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and thanks, Elo, for putting stuff in public. We'll see you guys in TIS Discord. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.